So a few months ago, one of the county board of supervisors members, Nora Vargas, stepped down. She won re-election and then immediately stepped down, which we're still not sure why. There's a lot of rumors swirling, but in the world of politics, that we've already moved on to bigger and better stories. There was a special election, and this was basically a primary. Nobody won. We have the top two vote getters that now face off in July. There were a number of Democrats that ran, and there was a Republican who ran, John McCann, who's the mayor of Chula Vista. Now, McCann secured just about 43.5% of the vote. And then the next leader was Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre, and she received about 32%. And everybody else falls by the wayside now. They don't matter anymore. So it's 43.5 or so to 32%. And then they're going to go for the runoff. I wanted to talk about this race. San Diego County Governors didn't weigh in on this race. And the reason we didn't weigh in on this race is that nobody in this race deserves your vote. It's kind of interesting. There's a couple of things that are very interesting about this. Aguirre actually received the anti-gun folks in San Diego received their endorsement. Now, this is interesting, and it's proof positive of what I've been saying. They're not actually dedicated to the idea of being anti-gun, okay? What they are is they are Democrats who use the gun issue, use your Second Amendment rights to try to get more Democrats endorsed and in office. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Aguirre is not pro-gun. Don't get me wrong. But between the two, between McCann and Aguirre, there's every reason in the world that they should have endorsed McCann, except for the fact that he's a Republican. McCann has actually voted for gun bans. He's voted for magazine bans. He's voted to expand gun violence restraining orders. He's basically checked off everything on the list that the anti-gunners like, whereas Aguirre hasn't done any of that. And in fact, when she was currently the mayor of Imperial Beach, she actually helped get a gun shop open in Imperial Beach. So you have a Democrat that they endorsed who's helped a gun shop open, and a Republican that they refused to endorse who has voted for extremely restrictive gun laws. Doesn't make any sense. I actually saw that the anti-gunners were at this march last week where it was just purely an anti-gun march, or excuse me, an anti-Trump march. It had nothing to do with guns. There was nothing in there that as far as the priorities and what their stated purpose was, nothing in these marches had anything to do with Second Amendment, had anything to do with their agenda. Had everything to do with Democrat talking points when it comes to economics and just generally being anti-Trump. Still, they, as a gun group, showed up. Doesn't make any sense at all. Need to understand their motivation. The anti-gunners in San Diego are not anti-gun as much as they are simply pro-Democrat. San Diego County Governors isn't like that. We're extremely nonpartisan. In fact, we're viciously nonpartisan. If you are pro-Second Amendment, we will support you. It doesn't matter what party you belong to. If you're a viable candidate and you're doing the things that you need to do to get elected and you're pro-Second Amendment, we'll support you. The other side of that is if you're anti-gun, we will absolutely not support you. So let's talk about John McCann. John McCann is somebody who is a Republican. They're the mayor of Chula Vista. He's the mayor of Chula Vista and is 100% absolutely anti-Second Amendment. That's not my opinion. That's actually his voting record. Okay, it's not something that he's stated or relayed to us. It's not some interpretation I'm making. I'm looking at his voting record on the Chula Vista City Council. In August of 2019, John McCann voted for a gun ban, a magazine ban, and an expansion of gun violence restraining orders. He did this after telling me he was going to vote against it. So he actually came to me personally at a Republican meeting and said, hey, I'm going to vote against this, but I don't think we have 3 votes. He said, I'm going to vote against it. Another Republican is going to vote against it. I don't think I have a 3rd vote to make this thing pass. So I went to a Democrat, Jill Galvez, and said, hey, here's why this thing doesn't make any sense. Here's why it's bad. I know you and I have talked before, Joe Galvez, and you are generally pro-Second Amendment. Her concern was, I don't want this thing to get out of hand, and I don't want this to be made a big deal. It really shouldn't be a city issue anyway, which I agree with her on. It shouldn't be a city issue. So I promised, hey, you know what? We got your back. Don't worry. It's going to pass. Everything will be okay. We'll cover for you. We won't show up with 100 people and make a big deal out of it, but we appreciate your vote. She said, great, let's do it. So the other Republican voted against it. She voted against it, and John McCann didn't. He voted for it. He voted for it, completely ruining the relationship or any credibility I had with Jill Galvez, and effectively, saying, hey, I am all for gun restrictions. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And it's not like it was some kind of, minor issue. This was a gun ban he was voting for. It was gun violence restraining orders that he was voting for. It was for a magazine ban that he was voting for. These are definitive issues when it comes to Second Amendment. Now, I got to tell you, I hear a lot from people who say, oh, but Mike, gee, golly gosh, this guy's a Republican. We got to elect a Republican majority on the county board of supervisors. And you know what? Second Amendment's not my primary issue anyway. Okay, well, let's analyze that. So let's talk about John McCann's character first, right off the bat. Now, I already told you he lied to me and backstabbed all gun owners and completely ruined a relationship, and my word, with another elected official. I'd say that's a fairly significant stab at his character. There have also been stories of him just walking off the dais rather than voting for something controversial. But I want to go back to November of 2014. John McCann was actually busted by NBC News. They interviewed him after an argument he had with another activist, or with an activist. He was actually an elected official at the time. The activist wasn't some left-wing lunatic. The activist was actually a conservative or, fairly right-of-center activist, and they were talking outside of a restaurant. And John McCann got so mad at this guy that he actually threw a rock at him. And when questioned by NBC News, they said, hey, you threw a rock. He goes, oh, no, I didn't throw a rock. That's not true. They showed him the security footage that he didn't know existed. But there was actually a security camera that caught him throwing a rock. And he stammered and lied and was all over the place. Eventually, he settled that, no, he wasn't picking up a rock and throwing it. He had dropped his cell phone, and he was picking up his cell phone. Well, I want to show, we actually got the video, the security camera video of John McCann, and I wanted to show his version of picking up a cell phone and trying to state, oh, no, I wasn't throwing a rock. Well, let's watch him Trevor Hoffman this thing at this guy's vehicle.
I never threw anything at the truck. I was carrying a phone. I was on the phone, and I think I may have dropped my phone. So I did not throw anything at his truck.
Today, a day after interviewing him, we showed him the video, but he did not want to go on camera as he watched it. Today, he said he didn't remember throwing anything at the truck.
That video clearly shows John McCann picking up a rock and throwing it at an activist. And then he went on again to lie to NBC and say, oh, no, that's not what I was doing. So as far as character, you cannot rely on John McCann. I mean, there's just no reason to believe that this guy is good when it comes to his word. He certainly can't control his temper. So what about taxes? That's something that's really important to Republicans. That's another issue that, hey, I want to vote for a Republican. And, taxes are very, very important. Just last year, he helped pass Measure P in Chula Vista. It's a sales tax increase in Chula Vista. And I don't mean that he, voted for it himself. I mean, he actually wrote an op-ed saying, hey, we need to increase your taxes. Now, if you read the op-ed, it's kind of mealy-mouthed and he kind of dances around it. And he actually refers to this tax hike as special. It's a very special tax hike. And he said that if it passes, this is another interesting quote, if this tax hike passes, that Chula Vista won't have to raise taxes. Okay, so if you guys vote for a tax increase, then we won't have to increase taxes because of your tax increase. Absolutely ridiculous. The idea that he is going to defend the Republican stance of being anti-tax there's no reason to believe this. This is one example, and it's recent. This didn't happen 10 years ago. This happened last year. This just happened. So what about COVID? I got to tell you, I see a lot of people that are supporting McCann, and their entire personality, their entire political awakening happened due to COVID. So how was McCann on COVID? Well, in April of 2020, right after COVID started, McCann publicly supported the shutdown that was supposed to be only 2 weeks, but of course extended well beyond that. He posted about social distancing and closing businesses and public areas like parks. And he also warned that Chula Vista cops, park rangers, and public works staff would enforce this law. There's no pretending that he wasn't absolutely in favor of and supporting all these shutdowns that some of the folks that were activated by COVID were against. And not only that, but he basically warned everybody publicly, hey, look, we're going to get cops and other city staff to enforce this. He backed masks publicly. He backed the stay-at-home orders that went well beyond 2 weeks publicly. And he backed bans on family gatherings. This is an actual public statement that he made in May of 2020. He publicly stated that it's disrespectful, quote unquote, to others when you don't wear a mask, and further supported bans on gatherings, groups, and specifically mentioned picnics. He basically warned that, hey, if you're out there with your friends and loved ones having a picnic, that we're going to send cops or park rangers after you. In no way was he in line with what Republicans generally were trying to accomplish when it comes to pushing back on COVID. Doesn't make any sense to me. And again, this isn't my interpretation. These are all public statements. So what about illegal immigration? That's another big hot button item when it comes to Republicans. Well, in an interview in November 2022, McCann was actually interviewed by BorderReport.com, and he said, quote, some supporters of Republican, actually he didn't say this. This was the article, but then there's a quote in here. So the article reads, some supporters of Republican mayoral candidate John McCann want him to change the welcoming status if he's elected, the welcoming status of Chula Vista. That's something he says won't happen. He says, I supported the welcoming city, said McCann, a longtime Chula Vista city councilman and Iraq war veteran. Chula Vista is the center of the San Diego-Tijuana economic region. I believe this relationship makes us a leader and will bring more jobs to Chula Vista. So this welcoming status, well, what's a welcoming city versus a sanctuary city? So I looked it up, and there's really no difference. A sanctuary city and a welcoming city are basically the same thing. It said here, well, often used interchangeably. Welcoming city and sanctuary city differ only in focus. Sanctuary city policies primarily aim to limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities, while welcoming city invites focus on creating inclusive and supportive environments for all residents, including immigrants. Of course, what is meant there is illegal immigrants, which, by the way, he refused to say in the interview. He refused to call them illegal immigrants, which is not very Republican of him. He actually told the Union Tribune that he wanted to protect the undocumented. So as far as immigration goes, he supports his version of a sanctuary city in Chula Vista. He says that the illegal immigrants will create jobs, and that he wants to protect them and refer to them as undocumented. If you're a Republican and you're in line with what they believe as far as illegal immigration, and you're hiring him to work on the County Board of Supervisors to protect what you think illegal immigration should be, you're sadly mistaken. It's not going to happen with John McCann. In no way is he in line with what Republicans believe. So what about environmentalism? That's another big one. Well, McCann has many times described himself as an environmentalist, and he actually listed it as a top priority. He's publicly backed fairly extreme, quote-unquote, climate change measures for Chula Vista, including their climate action plan. So it's climate change and fighting back against climate change or something that he has stated is very important to him, and has actually included some pretty extreme measures in Chula Vista's climate action plan, which again, he backs. No reason to believe that if you think that environmentalism, at least democratic flavor of environmentalism, has gone extreme, there's no reason to believe that McCann is anything other than in line with what extremism is when it comes to environmentalism. So what about abortion? There's another hot button topic that, Republicans tend to be pro-life. In fact, I think they're overwhelmingly pro-life. He's very vocal about being pro-choice, and he told the Union Tribune this on 2022. He said that he absolutely was pro-choice. He didn't mince words. He didn't, he wasn't mealy-mouthed about that. He's mealy-mouthed about so many other things, like the Second Amendment and, immigration and whatnot. But he was absolutely positive that he's pro-choice when it comes to abortion. I think some people are sadly mistaken when it comes to John McCann. And in no way should he be rewarded with higher office. Now, he came very close when it comes to the election. But, there's another election, and then winner takes all. There's no reason that you should offer him your vote. There's no reason you should donate to him. There's no reason he should be rewarded with higher office. No matter what, even if we have a majority Republicans and you like that idea that, hey, this is going to be the third Republican on the county board, it doesn't matter if none of his stances have to do with Republican policy. If he can't be trusted, if he's throwing rocks at activists and then lying about it. This guy's bad news. I understand that people are excited, Republicans are excited about getting him elected. But the reality is, if you vet this guy, if you scratch the surface just a little bit, he's not going to vote your way on abortion, on environmentalism, on illegal immigration, on COVID. He certainly didn't vote the right way, on taxes, and not on the Second Amendment. This isn't, a tiny little percentage. This is a big deal. He's not just kind of moderate or in a squishy area. He has backed some of the most extreme left-wing ideas when it comes to a lot of these issues. But the reality is he's proven time and time again that he cannot be trusted. He's going to tell you one thing and do another. He's got no backbone. He's not going to stand up and do anything controversial. He's going to put his finger in the air and see which way the wind is blowing. And I'm telling you right now, nobody in that race, neither person in that race is worth voting for. Don't give them something as precious as your vote. Certainly don't give them your time or your money. Now, I don't blame the Republican Party. They have to endorse the Republican in the race. I get it. And I blame the voters who got him to where he is on the city council and then mayor of Chula Vista. I blame people who don't do this level of vetting and find out, hey, he's a Republican, but does he actually believe in what I believe? Does he actually have any ounce of character? So please, don't vote for John McCann. Gun owners, we're not endorsing him. San Diego County Gun Owners is not endorsing him. We're not endorsing anybody in that race. Stay home. It's not going to help. Get him in that seat, and you're just going to be stabbed in the back rather than the front. So which is more dangerous? So there you go. Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you liked that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media. And check out our website at gunownersradio.com.